This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
Hi, my name is Danny, and this is my Nekusar the Mindrazer deck. So here we have Nekusar the Mindrazer, probably my favorite general out of the Commander 2013 product, and probably the most hated general out of any that I've ever played in my particular play group. He's a 5-mana 2/4 that allows everyone to draw an extra card in their draw step, but he also punishes my opponents for drawing cards because every card they draw costs them a life. So we'll get to some basic lands here. I have 6 islands. I have 4 swamps. And I have 3 mountains. Oh, hi there. Alright, so into some utility lands. Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth says, all my lands, and every land at the table for that matter, are all swamps in addition to their other land types. And here's Urborg's best friend, Cabal Coffers. It allows me to make a lot of mana, generally for a particular spell that you'll see later in the deck. Vesuva is generally either copying my Maze of Ith or my Cabal Coffers just to get that mana advantage, or to really prevent a big scary thing from hitting me in the face. Graveyards are relevant in Commander, that's why I don't like my opponents to have them. Bojuka Bog. A lot of players in my play group do play things like Gerard and oh goodness, I can't even think of his name now. Carador. There we go. Carador Ghost Chieftain. And those decks are generally graveyard based, so Bojuka Bog does a lot of work in those cases. Speaking of Maze of Ith, we have Maze of Ith. I don't like things hitting me, especially big, fat creatures. Temple of the False God, just to get that little bit of extra mana. Here we have the only man land in the deck, Lavaclaw Reaches. Just because I have the Cabal Coffers Urborg combo going, I needed a mana dump, so here it is. Lavaclaw Reaches, it becomes a 2/2 black and red elemental, and for I can actually pay X. He gets +X/+0 until end of turn, so he fire breathes, and that's very relevant to dump all that extra mana I have. We have the Guildgates. We have Dimir Guildgate, Rakdos Guildgate, and Izzet Guildgate. We just have 2 of the Vivid lands. We have Vivid Creek and Vivid Marsh, just to fix our mana. We have 1 Pain land. We have Shivan Reef here. Shivan Reef is the blue and red Pain land. I don't really like Pain lands, but this one I had laying around, so it made the cut. Temple of Deceit from Theros, the new set, although Born of the Gods is set to come out in about a month. I don't like drawing a lot of lands, so this allows me to possibly pitch one of those lands I don't want to draw to the bottom. We have all 3 of the filter lands here. We have Cascade Bluffs, Sunken Ruin, and Graven Cairns. We have all 3 check lands. We have Sulfur Falls, Dragonskull Summit, and Drowned Catacomb. With the release of Return to Ravnica block, the shock lands became much more available for players who don't want to pay $20 and $30 for shocklands for their EDH decks. So I really thank Wizards for bringing those back into circulation, especially with the modern format being as big as it is. So we have all 3 shocklands here. We have Blood Crypt, we have Steam Vents, and we have Watery Grave. And last but not least, the flagship land of the set, Command Tower, and its foily goodness here. Tezzeret the Seeker, the lone planeswalker in the deck. Generally for his Tinker ability, because I like to cheat my mana rocks into play. But also he allows me to untap my mana rocks, and I have killed people by making all my artifacts into 5/5s. Speaking of a few mana rocks, I think from here we're going to go in CMC order, and it's organized by card type. So we have Mox Diamond. What hasn't been said about Sol Ring? It's an include in every EDH deck. We have Mana Vault. Mana Vault, yay. I go through a lot of cards. With Nekusar, as most people can already imagine, I draw a lot of cards, they draw a lot of cards. I just like a way to recycle my cards, and Elixir does just that. Sensei's Divining Top is an auto-include in a lot of decks just for card selection, and that's why it's in here. Everyone likes a Howling Mine. It's Howling Mine. It lets people draw cards, and it lets Nekusar do work. Coalition Relic fixes my mana. Blood Moon generally is a big problem around my play group. My roommate likes Blood Moon a lot, and Chromatic Lantern just says, I don't care about your Blood Moon, my lands are going to tap for any color that I need. Temple Bell. Temple Bell allows me to force players to draw cards, and I like it when my opponents draw cards. Crawl Space is a new include as of, I think, yesterday. I don't like staring down very big board states. I don't like it when opponents have 14 and 15 big creatures poised to attack me. So Crawl Space says, you can only attack me with 2 of those. Thran Dynamo gives me a lot of mana. Teferi's Puzzle Box is probably one of the most degenerate cards in this deck. I have effects that can bounce entire board states to players' hands, and Teferi's Puzzle Box says your hand goes to the bottom, and thus the problem goes to the bottom, and you draw that many cards and take a lot of damage. Gilded Lotus, really good for mana fixing. Bloodchief Ascension is surprisingly really good. Bloodchief Ascension says at the beginning of each instep, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, which they generally do on their turns, I can put a quest counter on Bloodchief Ascension. And if we're playing 4-player, it automatically activates after 1 round. It says whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if Bloodchief Ascension has 3 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 2 life. If you do, gain 2 life. I really need to gain life in this deck because generally I'm the one being attacked. So Bloodchief Ascension allows me to siphon at least 2 every turn. Liliana's Caress says, go ahead and discard those cards. You pay 2 life for each of them. And so does Migrim. Does the same thing as Liliana's Caress, only 1 more mana. Underworld Dreams is an auto-include in this deck, although the triple black mana cost is a little much, but when it's in play, it does a lot of work. It's Nekusar's second ability on an enchantment, which is a little less removable than just a creature. Propaganda, again, I don't like big things attacking me, especially very large board states, so I'd like to make you pay something to have to attack me. Spiteful Visions It's not only a Howling Mine, but it also deals damage to each player. This includes me, sadly, when they draw a card. But I'll pay 1 for my cards. You can pay 2 or 3. Dream Halls is kind of a card I'm on the fence about because I don't like pitching a lot of my cards. But when I'm kind of mana light and I need to cast my big spells, Dream Halls is the card I go for. Speaking of big spells, Forced Fruition is scary. When this hits play, I'm generally the one with the bullseye on my chest because I force them to draw a mass amount of cards. Just today, my roommate was trying to combo off by ritualing a lot. And for each ritual he cast, he had to draw 7 cards, and he took a lot of damage for it, ultimately ending him at 7 life and a situation where he couldn't cast another spell or he died. Brainstorm is in here purely for card selection. As you saw, I don't have any fetch lands. I can't really abuse Brainstorm as much as I'd like to, but Brainstorm is still a really good card. We have Mystical Tutor, once I get my hand out of the way. Mystical Tutor, it can fetch an instant sorcery or a mana source, so it can get a land, it can get any of my mana rocks. Vampiric Tutor. I love this card. I like tutors. Tutors are a big thing about this deck. I find that I'm shuffling a lot more often than I should, but when you need a card, you need a card. And at 2 life, I'll gladly pay that for a card. Cyclonic Rift is one of those really degenerate cards with Teferi's Puzzle Box. Being able to wipe everyone else's board state and then force them to tuck their entire hand usually turns the game around for me. Starstorm is just instant speed mass removal when I have a lot of mana in play. Although it does kill every creature on my board as well, I'm okay with having to rebuild, especially if it means getting rid of a very problematic board state. Peer Through Depths gets me the instant or sorcery that I need, or just an instant or sorcery at that. It's really good card selection. I would advocate for this card. Arcane Denial. Kind of getting into the counter spells of the deck now. Arcane Denial, I really like this card because it lets my opponents draw cards. And I really like it when my opponents draw cards for some reason. We have Counterspell, which just says no. There are generals out there, like Zur the Enchanter, or any other problem general, that just needs to get tucked. And Hinder, as well as its other brother, Spell Crumple, they do the job nicely. Fact or Fiction, I like making people make choices. And when I can make someone make a choice like this, generally it comes out in my favor because people don't like to be put on the spot. And that's just what this does. Turnabout allows me to untap my lands for even more mana for those spells that I need, like Starstorm, or there's one more in the back that you'll see. It also allows me to tap down other people's lands or an entire board state. So I know Cryptic Command would probably be a little bit better in this case because it would let me draw a card, but Turnabout kind of gets the nod because I can rebuy my mana. Misdirection, generally not a counterspell in this deck, but I do use it to redirect spells that are killing my mana rocks or one of my dudes. Opportunity. I have killed players with Opportunity before, just forcing them to draw 4 cards did it. And when I'm kind of in a pinch, I like to draw 4 cards. Ponder, just good card selection. Vandal Blast has been surprisingly good. A friend of mine kind of suggested that I play Vandal Blast because I didn't have any other way to destroy an artifact. So Vandal Blast lets me destroy all the artifacts for 5 mana that aren't mine, and I'm all for that. Reanimate. Sometimes I want your big creature, so I take it. Or sometimes I just want to rebuy one of my creatures, so I do. Demonic Tutor. What can I say about Demonic Tutor that hasn't already been said? It gets me out of a lot of jams. Dreadbore in here over Hero's Downfall simply because Hero's Downfall was a little too mana intensive. And yes, I know I play Underworld Dreams, but Dreadbore does the exact same thing. Sure, it's sorcery speed, but it still gets there. Here's my other mana dump. Exsanguinate gets me out of a lot of holes that I've dug for myself. If I'm really low on life, I can tap all my lands, make a bunch of mana with Cabal Coffers and Urborg in play. I can turn about and make more, and usually kill everybody with a very large Exsanguinate. Yawg's Will lets me rebuy every card in my graveyard, and I'm really big on recursion. And here is the big game in this deck, all the wheels. Everyone likes drawing cards, so why not draw all the cards? Molten Psyche, I generally have Metalcraft in this deck, so each player shuffles the cards from his or her hand into his or her library, and then draws that many cards. And with Metalcraft, it deals damage to them equal to the number of cards they've drawn this turn. So you go ahead and take 14 from Nekusar, maybe another enchantment, and then you're going to take 7 more because I have Metalcraft. This card kills a lot of people. Windfall, because I like it when my opponents discard cards, and I like it when they draw cards. Wheel of Fortune, I like drawing 7 cards, and I like it when my opponents draw 7 cards. Whispering Madness is another windfall effect. I generally like playing this, ciphering it onto a creature, and then we windfall twice in a turn. Consuming Vapors allows me to gain some life. It's a 4-mana sorcery that forces a player to sacrifice a creature, and I gain life equal to that creature's toughness. And it might not sound that great, but it does have rebound, so I get to rebuy it for free at the beginning of my next upkeep. Devastation Tide has gotten me out of a lot of sticky situations. I can Vampiric Tutor for Devastation Tide, or I can Mystical Tutor for Devastation Tide and tap my top to draw it and get out of a situation in which I wouldn't have gotten out of in the first place. Decree of Pain probably should be Damnation, but I like drawing cards. I like card advantage. I'm a blue mage after all. So I like to destroy all the creatures. I like it that they can't be regenerated, and I also like it that I draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. But I can also cycle it to draw a card and give each creature -2/-2 until end of turn. Like I said, recursion's really big for me, so Snapcaster Mage was an auto-include. I like to rebuy my spells. Kami of the Crescent Moon. Who doesn't like a Howling Mine, and who doesn't like drawing cards? This guy lets me force my opponents to draw cards, and allows me to draw more cards. I play a lot of instants and sorceries in the deck, so Gutter Snipe said, hey bro, why don't you put me in this deck and I'll deal you some damage. And I did, and he did. So whenever I cast an instant or sorcery, which I cast a lot of them, he will deal 2 damage to each of my opponents, which also turns on Bloodchief Ascension. Jace's Archivist is a windfall on a stick. Man of War, he has let me rebuy my Snapcaster Mage and my Trinket Mage. He's also bounced Problematic Generals or big tokens. He actually bounced a 52/52 Avatar token from a Johnny Goldmane today. So I'm really proud of this little jellyfish. Trinket Mage, he usually goes and fetches up my Soul Ring or my top. He has been known to fetch up my my Mox Diamond, and I'm in the process of getting a few artifact lands so he can get those as well. Solemn Simulacrum, probably the second card in your deck list underneath Soul Ring. Phyrexian Metamorph, he generally copies my Mana Rocks just because I like a lot of mana. But he has also been known to copy big things like a Craterhoof Behemoth or an Avenger of Zendikar. Sangromancer is a 3/3 flyer for 4, and she says whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, I can gain 3 life. I generally don't destroy a lot of creatures, I just like to dump them into graveyards. So her second ability is more relevant here. It says whenever an opponent discards a card, you may gain 3 life. I have a lot of discard effects, a lot of wheels, and generally I like to keep my opponent's hands above 7. A friend of mine looked at this and said, why aren't you just playing Dark Confidant? And I said, why would I play Dark Confidant when I could just share the card advantage and share the pain? So Duskmantle Seer gets there. He is a 4/4 flyer for 4, and at the beginning of my upkeep, each player reveals the top card in his or her library, loses life equal to that card's converted mana cost, and puts that card into their hand. So at my upkeep, everyone flips a card. You flip your big fatty and take 10. We'll windfall, and I'll get rid of the fatty anyway. Psychosis Crawler, because I like dealing damage when I draw cards too, and he's just really big at times. And last but not least, we have Charmbreaker Devils. I was really scared of his mana cost at first. I mean, he does cost 6, but he's not really mana intensive, and he lets me rebuy my instants and sorceries, which are really big in my case. So he definitely made the cut. I'm really happy to have him, and he does a lot of work along with Snapcaster Mage and Trinket Mage. So yeah, that's the deck. I really enjoyed sharing it with you, and I hope you all like it as well. Any comments on it would be greatly appreciated. It's always a work in progress. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for watching CMDR Decks. Please subscribe and favorite.